Stewart was lying. A source close to Meghan saying that Martha must have been confused because the pair were not seated next to one.
Dinner with Meghan Markle the other night. Well, she was at the same table. So I can't say, she wasn't my guest. We were both guests at a dinner party in California. And she had just gotten back from the palace. And I think I didn't talk to her really more than to say a couple words, but I know she was talking about it.
Yeah. Martha, who has, 7 decades of telling us the truth. What you have, Meghan, is 10 years of lies. So I'm sorry,
Right.
I trust.
According to Martha Stewart, and why would she lie? She's a very successful, accomplished woman. She's a titan of American public life, of American culture. Does she need to lie about Meghan Markle?
Meghan Markle just called Martha Stewart a liar. Not in those words, but when an anonymous source appears in the Daily Mail within hours of Martha's comments going public, claiming the 83-year-old American icon was confused about what she overheard at a dinner table, that is what's happening. That's the move. That's the choice someone made.
I had dinner with Meghan Markle the other night. Well, she was at the same table. So I can't say, she wasn't my guest. We were both guests at a dinner party in California. And she had just gotten back from the palace.
And it's worth sitting with that for a second. Because of all the options available this week, that was the one the team landed on. So here's what actually happened, because the attack only makes sense against the thing it was responding to.
Stewart was lying. A source close to Meghan saying that Martha must have been confused because the pair were not seated next to one.
Martha Stewart was doing a People magazine interview, her own cover, her own story, decades of building something real, the recipes, the brand, the prison stint, the comeback, and People magazine finally sitting her down to do the retrospective she'd earned. At some point, the subject of Meghan came up, and Martha mentioned completely casually that she'd been at a dinner party in California. Meghan was there, same table. They'd barely spoken, a couple of words between them, nothing more. But Martha knew Meghan was talking about the palace. She'd just returned from the visit with King Charles and Queen Camilla at Highgrove, and according to Martha, the table got a fairly detailed account of it.
Dinner with Meghan Markle the other night. Well, she was at the same table. So I can't say, she wasn't my guest. We were both guests at a dinner party in California. And she had just gotten back from the palace. And I think I didn't talk to her really more than to say a couple words, but I know she was talking about it. If you're an actress, it's hard to then transition to a princess, and then from a princess into a homemaking guru on a television show. It doesn't sort of follow. So go from there.
There's two things.
That's it. No headline hunting, no coordinated campaign, just an 83-year-old woman with nothing to prove dropping a single observation the way you'd mention the weather. By the next news cycle, the anonymous source was deployed. Martha must have been confused. They weren't seated near each other. Someone else had asked Meghan about the European trip. She said it was nice. That was the extent of it. She remains, and this is the detail that deserves its own moment, she remains a fan of Martha's.
They were not seated near each other. Meghan was asked about Europe by someone else and said it was nice, and that was the extent of it. She remains a fan of Martha. The Daily Mail even notes they asked the reps for comment, which is a journalistic...
Read that back. The rebuttal doesn't say the subject never came up. It doesn't say Meghan never mentioned the palace or the king. It says Martha was sitting too far away to hear it correctly. That is a very specific kind of walk back. One that concedes a conversation happened somewhere in that room. It just disputes who was listening, from what distance, and how much was said.
Let it go. Just chill out. Now, in my opinion, this definitely should have been one of the easiest conversations in the world to avoid. It would have been completely easy just to avoid it, because whenever you say something or do something that appears like coming from you, like in People magazine, it's going to have the optics of you with the clap back. Okay? You should have just said nothing and moved on. That's what you should.
And then, just to soften the blow, the source adds that Meghan still admires Martha. That's the flattery sandwich. Martha was confused. Meghan's still a fan. Please stop noticing that the founding mother of American domestic theatre just described your career path as something that doesn't sort of follow. In Montecito crisis communications, that apparently counts as a win. In the real world, it sounds like someone captioning a fire and calling it a candle. Because here's the problem. The story was 24 hours old. Martha's comment was offhand. She was in the middle of a profile about herself. She wasn't running a campaign. She wasn't trying to damage anyone. If the response had been silence, this fades by Thursday. Nobody builds a news cycle around a dinner party anecdote from someone who didn't even claim to sit next to you. But they responded. And now there's a credibility contest. Martha Stewart on one side, an unnamed source on the other. Think about what that contest actually looks like to the average person watching.
Yeah.
Martha, who has, 7 decades of telling us the truth. What you have, Meghan, is 10 years of lies. So I'm sorry,
Right.
I trust...
Martha built an empire from scratch over 50 years, went to prison, a not metaphorically actual prison, and came back. Didn't rebrand, didn't pivot to wellness content or a podcast or a Netflix cooking show, just kept being exactly who she'd always been, and the audience came back with her. She has Snoop Dogg as a collaborator and a People magazine cover at 83. She is not fragile. She is not someone who fabricates gossip to stay relevant. She has absolutely no reason to invent a dinner party conversation about Meghan Markle.
It's been at this very, very posh dinner party in California with a bunch of millionaires because the Duchess does not hang out with ordinary people. And what's happened, according to Martha Stewart, and why would she lie? She's a very successful, accomplished woman. She's a titan of American public life, of American culture. Does she need to lie about Meghan Markle?
So when the anonymous source says she was confused, the public runs a quick calculation. Who has more to gain from the story going one way? Who's in a position where the dinner party conversation being accurate creates a real problem? And who, historically, has a pattern of contested claims being managed through unnamed intermediaries?
The Daily Mail trying to make us believe that Martha Stewart was lying. A source close to Meghan saying that Martha must have been confused because the pair were not seated next to one another. The insider said, and this has clearly come directly from her team to the Mail, Meghan was asked by someone else about her European vacation. She said it was nice and that was the extent of it. I think she...
The math doesn't take long. Calling Martha Stewart confused is the lifestyle brand equivalent of a first-year chef publicly correcting Julia Child on knife technique. You might even be right, but you've made a statement about yourself in the process, and everyone in the room heard it.
She's gangsta. I'm telling you, this is a woman that rolls with Snoop Dogg. She's been to prison, and she still has it. She's going to say what she wants to say, and it doesn't matter. And bless Martha Stewart for coming.
What makes this even harder to justify is that it isn't the first time Martha has raised exactly this question.
The most meaningful criticism Martha Stewart has ever given Meghan Markle was a year ago or a while ago during the launch of We'd Love Meghan, when Meghan's team went into overdrive trying to force comparisons between Martha and Gwyneth Paltrow in the media. So they wanted everybody to be like the next Gwyneth, the next Oprah, or the next Oprah, the next Martha when it came to Meghan. And at the time, Martha said something along the lines of, I think if you're going to put yourself in a position like this, you need to actually be an authority on the subject. And we'll see how.
And Meghan's team knew it. When Meghan's PR machine was pushing comparisons between the two during the With Love Meghan launch, Martha said publicly and clearly that to position yourself in this space, you need to actually be an authority on the subject. She asked pointedly whether Meghan had designed her own products, whether she'd used them, whether she could speak about them convincingly. She praised Gwyneth Paltrow specifically as the example of how to do it right, which, if you understand what that implies about Meghan by contrast, is quite a sentence to deliver at a press junket.
She went further by posing a series of devastating questions about Meghan's products. Does Meghan Markle really design her products? Has she used those products? Can she speak nicely about her own products? Her point was that it's not authentic. And she...
There's also the matter of a one-pan pasta recipe that some have reported Meghan lifted from Martha's catalogue.
And she singled out Gwyneth Paltrow as being the opposite, being an absolute genius, and praising her business model, which is very similar to what Meghan was aiming for. And of course, there was the history of Martha Stewart and Meghan over the one-pan pasta, which some have reported.
Meghan denies it. Martha has never confirmed it publicly, but it sits in the background of this relationship like a footnote nobody wants to cite out loud. The point is, Martha wasn't ambushed into an opinion this week. She's had the same opinion for over a year. She's expressed it in rooms full of people who could have told Meghan's team, and she's said it even when sitting next to people who are openly friendly with Harry and Meghan. She doesn't calibrate her honesty based on the company. She just says what she thinks. That is the woman Meghan's team decided to call confused in the British tabloids.
Some anonymous royal commentator. This is Martha Stewart. This is someone who has built an empire over 4 decades. She survived scandal. She rebuilt her career. She went to freaking prison. Okay? She became one of the most recognizable lifestyle brands in America. Now, whether you agree with me or not, or with Martha Stewart, she has enormous.
And now, look at what was happening on the other side of the same week, because context here matters enormously. Cookie Queen promo, light blue backdrop, white blazer, soft lighting, Girl Scouts in a semicircle, genuinely curious.
Different set, different problem. Light blue background, white blazer, soft lighting, Girl Scout energy in the room, Cookie Queen's promo. A young girl asks Meghan for the childhood advice that still guides her. And
one of them asks about childhood advice. Meghan, eyes slightly downcast, careful hand gestures, full composed teacher energy, delivers 4 words. Keep a good heart. She says it twice. Doubles
keep
down.
A good heart.
No matter
I
the
think
situation.
It's one of those simple
Just
things that you
go,
can always
keep a good
remember no matter
heart.
what situation you're in. Just keep a good heart.
keep a good heart. She doubles down. It's simple. You can always remember it. No matter what situation you're in, just go, keep a good heart.
On paper, that's fine. Harmless. The kind of thing you want a public figure to say to children on camera. And advice doesn't have to be complicated to be true. But the internet didn't hear it in isolation. They heard it the same week that an anonymous source on Meghan's behalf was in the British press disputing a beloved 83-year-old's memory of her own dinner party.
Keep a good heart when you're bullying your sister-in-law who's about to battle cancer. Keep a good heart when you're snubbing and secretly recording your own father who has just lost half his leg in a Filipino hospital. Oh, you keep a good heart when you're bullying the late Queen Elizabeth II on an internet.
They heard it from a woman whose father has been publicly estranged for years. A situation that has produced dozens of news cycles and, apparently, 0 private attempts at resolution that anyone can point to. They heard it from someone who gave a prime-time interview cataloguing grievances against an entire family while one of its members was privately preparing to deal with a cancer diagnosis. Who co-produced a documentary revisiting those same grievances, whose husband wrote a memoir he told the Times he stands by every single word of. Keep a good heart. The advice isn't wrong. Plenty of imperfect people say true things. That's allowed. That's human. The problem is the packaging. When the entire public persona has been built on conflict, on the story of how badly things were done to you, on the case for why the world owes you a different outcome, and then you pivot to greeting card morality on a branded promo. The audience doesn't hear wisdom. They hear a product demo. And this week specifically, they heard it from someone who'd spent the previous 48 hours deploying an anonymous source to call the woman she's professionally trying to be confused about a dinner table. That's not keeping a good heart. That's keeping a good image. And audiences know the difference.
Her public persona runs on conflict, then pivots to greeting card morality on a branded promo. The audience hears a product demo, not a soul. And yeah, it's sometimes hard to find a soul in there. And that is why the comments...
They've had enough years of watching the gap between those two things to be very good at spotting it. Now, Martha isn't the only name this week.
all of a sudden, she has had this dawning realization about the fact that the public have turned on her. And the public have turned on her, of course, because she perpetuated Meghan Markle's lies. And that's the reason why we're seeing this attempt to rewrite history with the Vanity Fair interview last week, where she finally tried to justify that. But as Nancy Sidley pointed out, she's upset that people have finally got a voice to call out her bullshit. In the past, she could get away.
And that's worth paying attention to. Oprah Winfrey, the woman who gave Harry and Meghan's version of events its biggest single platform, who sat across from them and let those claims land without meaningful pushback, is now doing segments about why people are so rude and mean everywhere you go. She says it feels like something is in the drinking water. She says she wants to bring in a social psychologist to understand what's happened to us.
I wanted to do the show because I know you all have noticed it too. People are just so rude and mean everywhere you go. It just feels like, is it in the drinking water? What has happened that people just will say anything to you, will treat you any kind of way? People are so mean. And I know that I'm not the person who's just feeling this. And a lot of people have expressed they were feeling it. That's why I wanted to do a show and talk to a social psychologist about what is happening to us.
That is not social commentary. That's a woman who used to be immune to public accountability, discovering that the internet has a longer memory than she planned for, and that the audience she once could shape is now shaping things back. Nobody woke up meaner. They just got a microphone, and they've been using it to play back the receipts.
What is happening to us? Oops, we woke up to you and what you did. So before I bring in royal YouTube sensation P. Diner, I want to show you a bit more of Meghan.
Two of the most significant names in Meghan's orbit are, in the same week, publicly uncomfortable with where the association has landed them. One is retreating into vague cultural lament about human nature. The other just got labelled confused in the Daily Mail by an anonymous source. That's a pattern, not a coincidence. And the pattern of the response itself, not just this week, but across years, has a very consistent shape, and it's worth naming it. The palace conversation about race, the specific claims contested, the original framing never retracted, the investigation that was promised quietly disappearing. Thomas Markle, years of silence while the estrangement kept generating headlines that required management through intermediaries. The bullying allegations from palace staff, denied through PR. The formal investigation's findings never publicly released. Spare. Harry was asked about its contents after a court case. He told The Times he stands by every single word, a statement that could reportedly cost him millions in ongoing damages. Every time something uncomfortable surfaces, the shape of the response is the same. Anonymous source. Soft denial. Pivot to the credibility of whoever raised the original claim. The story stops being about what was said and starts being about whether the person saying it can be trusted. It has worked before. It works less well when the person on the other end is someone the public trusts more than they trust anonymous sources from Montecito. And here is the detail that ties the whole week together, because this is the part that almost requires its own moment. Sources also reported this week that advisors have been quietly discussing whether Harry and Meghan should issue a public apology to King Charles, a carefully worded statement, acknowledging that the last 5 years caused enormous pain.
Top shooter now reporting that there's this almost like double hell coming. Harry and Meghan considering what was previously unthinkable, a public royal apology. And that comes as A-listers are avoiding her birthday. So let's get to this story first, P. Diner. Shooter reports Prince Harry and Meghan Markle may be preparing for their most significant royal reset yet. Multiple sources tell Naughty But Nice that behind the scenes, serious discussions are underway about whether the Duke and Duchess of Sussex should issue a carefully crafted public apology.
Not retracting specific claims Jumbers made, just acknowledging the damage. Multiple drafts reportedly written. Advisors who genuinely believe it's the right move. The same week those drafts are supposedly being prepared, an anonymous source from Meghan's circle is in the British press calling Martha Stewart confused about a dinner party. That is not what rebuilding trust looks like. It's not even what wanting to look like you're rebuilding trust looks like. Because here's what this week was actually supposed to be.
Now, following the Highgrove House summit, in which Harry, Meghan, Archie and Lily had afternoon tea with King Charles and Queen Camilla, with a strict order from the King for this meeting to be private, American cultural icon Martha Stewart has sensationally revealed that Meghan has been blabbing and boasting about the reunion with her father-in-law. Now, in just a moment, I'm going to bring in Phil Dampier, one of the biggest names in journalism, a guy that's been reporting on the royal family for 40 years.
The Highgrove visit was the reset. Harry, Meghan and the children. Afternoon tea with King Charles and Queen Camilla, a private meeting reportedly arranged under strict conditions. No photographs, no press statements, no social media. Just a family, quietly trying to be in the same room again. For about 48 hours it held. Then Martha mentioned the dinner party, and instead of silence, instead of the one response that would have protected both the royal relationship and the narrative, the team went to the tabloids to contest her seating position. The palace visit was supposed to restore royal credibility, to put the Sussex name back in proximity to something the lifestyle brand could lean on, because the brand needs the help.
Well, because nobody is buying her fruit spread. No one is buying her Napa Valley Rosé that I would not even use to wash my Prius. No one is buying her flour sprinkles. No one is watching any TV shows that Meghan's involved with.
The jam isn't selling at the scale that was projected. The Netflix chapter is closed. Books she reportedly bought the rights to haven't become anything. Harry has reportedly reduced his speaking fee. And this week, the Montecito mansion appeared on a real estate website with photos of the kitchen, which is not something you do when you're planning to stay. She walked into that California dinner party from the one place that still carries weight she can't manufacture. And she talked about it, and Martha heard it. The birthday told the same story without anyone having to say a word.
Dance moves. The question is simpler. Where is everyone? Because Harry's there. Sort of. You hear him. He laughs. He says, "Oh dear," from somewhere behind the lens, which is the audio equivalent of a man who showed up for moral support and then discovered he had been cast as the boom operator. The dogs get paper hats in a second clip. Meghan laughs, the hats fall off. Harry says, "Oh dear," again. It's cute if you freeze it as a private moment.
The 45th was reportedly planned as something significant. Sources describe a vision of an iconic A-list gathering, the kind of room that would signal she still had the room. Names like Oprah, Serena Williams, Amal Clooney mentioned. The kind of guest list that makes a statement. The guest list didn't come together. The party quietly disappeared. What was posted instead was a solo kitchen video, barefoot, balloons in hand, a paper crown. Harry's voice audible somewhere off camera, warm, present, not visible. The dogs in party hats in a second clip. It's genuinely sweet if you freeze it as a private moment and leave it there. It's something else entirely when you post it as the official face of a 45th birthday from someone who spent years selling the idea of community, warmth, and an orbit of people who want to be near her. An entire brand built on togetherness. And the balloons are doing the social work the crowd was supposed to do. The choreography is for an audience that only exists after she hits post. That's the week. Martha caught her using the palace as social currency and mentioned it. The team attacked Martha for mentioning it. The attack turned a one-day story into a 3-day referendum on who the public trusts. The Cookie Queen promo asked that same public to hear life wisdom from someone who just called an icon confused about her own dinner table. The birthday showed up empty in exactly the way the brand promised it never would. And somewhere in there, advisors are reportedly drafting an apology. A woman who keeps a good heart doesn't need to call Martha Stewart confused. She lets it go. Drop a comment. Do you think the clapback made this worse, or was there ever a good option once Martha spoke? Subscribe for daily royal coverage.